Welcome to Growth Happens in the Dirt, a journey through brain injury recovery and the science of healing. Chapter 13, Part 2. Wake up and start again. Still unemployed, I would get up each day and start again. Take a breath and begin to assess what was working, what wasn't working, and start again. Some days I would fight with the husband, lose my mouth with the kids, apologize, and start again the next day. I became very good at apologizing for my behavior and ensuring no one thought it was because of them. The more time I spent on the computer, the worse my headaches got, but I was determined to do something. I started researching the brain and looking at what made me happy and what didn't. What foods made me feel good and what didn't. Which people made me happy and who didn't. It was all very black and white, but I was tired of working in the grey. A head injury puts you in the mist and you can really get lost in yourself. I needed to build a glass bridge out of the chaos. So with trust, I put one foot in front of the other, hoping to get to the other side. My neck and knee still went right. But after 8 months on the concussion program, I was signed off. Yet I still wasn't right physically. So the local doctor approved another 6 weeks until I could have a formal assessment with the specialist in the new year. Over the Christmas period, things went from a quiet life to full-on entertainment schedule with the kids. Because they were off school, I went from having daily brain breaks to having no time at all on my own. Driving almost every day with the children, I suddenly developed neural symptoms that I had not experienced before. My hand would go numb when driving, and I felt as if I had spiders crawling up the back of my skull. I didn't talk too much about it. I just climbed into the painkillers again and carried on. My mood worsened due to not having brain breaks, and it seemed like the few months of happiness were evaporating as quickly as water on concrete in the summer. Still, because I knew I was not as low as I had been, there was an immense hardening in my spirit. And each day I got up and started again. I was determined to use this harrowing time of my life to help others. There is only so much time you can dedicate to yourself until you get bored. So over the Christmas break, I began reading, devouring concussion information, looking at the parallels of what I had personally found worked and what was irrelevant. I got excited about the idea of going back to my first love of natural medicine and helping others to avoid the pitfalls that I was going through. I set a goal of being off the welfare system by February, even though no job was in sight. Tools: find a distraction. If you have a hobby or an interest, or you had one in the past, start to explore how you can use this to get better at it as soon as possible. Staring at your own navel during recovery can be debilitating, especially if you don't feel you are getting better. By distracting the brain with learning, you can start to unlock neural pathways that will help you to focus less on your pain and more on your project. Even if you can't see a pathway for this to become a job, remember, the brain can only focus on one thing at a time. So by using this superpower, you can distract yourself from constantly thinking about what hurts. Still unemployed. February arrived and I was still unemployed. The children went back to school and I was left with pressure headaches, pressure in the back of the skull, numbness in my arm, a buckling knee, and thousands of dollars out of pocket for physio, osteopathy, and therapists. I was frustrated, yet hopeful that the next specialist I was booked into could give me answers for the ongoing physical symptoms. I drove an hour on my own to see the doctor who was assessing me, to see what jobs I could go back to, and whether I needed further treatment. My case manager had told me that the goal was to rehabilitate back to pre-injury health of working 30 hours per week. When I arrived at the clinic, a young receptionist led me through a locked door into the specialist's waiting room. After 10 minutes, a small Indian practitioner poked his head out of an office and barked, "Who are you? Are you here to see me?" He looked furtively around to see if there were any other humans in the hallway. "Yes, I am here to see you, I think." He blinked, adjusting the tiny wire glasses on his frowning face. "Who let you in?" he spat. "Was she short with dark hair?" I shrugged my shoulders. The doctor sniffed. "Okay, what's your name?" I told him, and shutting the door, he said, "Okay, 5 minutes." Oh my God, I burst out laughing aloud and waited for the doctor to be ready for our appointment. Finally, seated in his small overheated office, he asked me to recount the entire journey again. He did a few eye tests, looked at my head movement and balance, all of which took 5 minutes. He muttered, "Oh, good," randomly scrawling notes in his white notebook. Abruptly, he asked, "Anything else?" As I sat back down, I told him about my knee popping and the constant feeling of it buckling and the neuropathy, especially when driving, which I had already Googled and found a link between damage to the C5 to C6 vertebrae. I explained about the consistent headaches and the symptoms that weren't going away. He curled his lip after listening for a few minutes and said, "Mrs. Jolly, you are competent to return to work. I believe you are stressed and you just need to start doing more yoga. I am signing you off to work for 30 hours a week and I will send the report to your case manager." As I sat back in the car, my blood boiled vehemently for 2 reasons. 1, he hadn't taken the time to read my case notes and did not listen to my concerns. 2, my previous experience as a naturopath was outraged by his lack of empathy or investigative follow-up. So, I wrote a letter to his office and sent a copy to my case manager demanding an MRI on my neck to rule out damage to the vertebrae. The squeaky wheel does get the oil, as 3 weeks later, when I had an MRI, they found annular tears in C5 to C6 and a disc bulge in between these two discs, all which produce cervical radiculopathy symptoms, which I had. Headaches, vision problems, and numbness in my shoulder, hands, and biceps are all associated with this area. Tools: having a PhD in your own problem. Your body is a barometer that tells you when things are awry. If you can research your own issue, it will help you to navigate specialist appointments. Know that when you are seeing a specialist or any practitioner, generally they are focusing on you for your time slot only, and it is so important to have a list of questions and concerns before you enter the room so that you can get answers in that appointment time. And it is always beneficial to get a second opinion if you can, if you feel that there is a deeper problem happening with your health. And in conclusion, don't take no for an answer if your problems are still occurring. Thank you for listening to Chapter 13, Part 2 of Growth Happens in the Dirt. I really hope that this helps you or your loved ones at this time. My book is now available on Amazon in paperback form and in Kindle. Keep shining.